This giant ship with a head-on chrysanthemum is the largest warship ever built by mankind. The Great River, this steel giant ship, with a displacement of 73,000 tons, has become the last fantasy of the pirates. Due to the limited number of Japanese naval ships, Japan is facing a reality problem that can't compete with the United States in terms of the number of warships, so they came up with an extreme plan. Since they can't build that many, they will build a superswordless supersword. The single ship is a pressure advantage to offset the number of US advantages. So this ship was equipped with 3 9-door 460mm cannon warships. The weight of the single main cannon turret of the Grand Himane is 2,774 tons. This is almost the weight of a destroyer. In order to achieve a one-shot kill in the final battle, the main cannon of 460mm diameter can pierce any armor of a strategic ship at that time. Today I will combine real history to explain to you the process of the Great River being sunk. As the new flagship of the joint fleet, the Japanese treasured this giant ship as a treasure. The few battles that participated were also away from the battlefield. But in October 1944, the US military launched the Philippine War. The US-Japan Navy held the largest naval war in human history in Leyte Bay. Due to the life and death of the joint fleet, the Great River finally went to the battlefield. However, this era belongs to the aircraft. Facing the American fighter, the Wolf's World, the Great River is desperately fighting with its dense anti-aircraft guns. The Big River has 45 3-in-1 and 21 single-in-1 25mm guns, a total of 156 anti-aircraft guns. But the American fighter aircraft made the Japanese tired and exhausted. In the end, the front armor of the Big River was hit by a bomb in the head of the American aircraft. As a result, the ship was damaged and watered. So the Big River was withdrawn from the battle, but his sister ship Wazang was sunk. The Japanese Navy also lost its fighting power in the defeat of the Lightman Bay. November 24, 1944, the Big River returned to the mainland of Japan. It was the end of the war. Japan has lost its maritime and air power. The Big River can only hide in the port to avoid a war, but the US military's attack was one wave above the other. April 1, 1945, the US military launched an attack on Chongshang Island. Chongshang Island is the largest island in the port to avoid a war, but the US military's attack is one wave higher than one wave. On April 1, 1945, the US military launched an attack on the Chosen Island. The Chosen Island is the largest island in the Ryukyu Islands, located between Taiwan, China and Japan's Jeju Island, and is only 300 kilometers from the Japanese mainland. The US military is preparing to take this place as a landing pad for the Japanese mainland. In order to prevent the US military from taking the Chosen, the Japanese military commanded the Japanese Navy to attack at this time. The Japanese Navy was almost the only one in the Japanese Navy. The Ministry of Defense could only order the Japanese Navy to form a special fleet to attack at that time. Japan not only had no aircraft, but only 10 ships that could be launched, including the Japanese Navy asterisk. They need to remove all the fuel on the ship and wrap the deck with sandbags to make sure the bullets don't break. Before the ship set sail, the number of soldiers was about 3,300. Although it looks like the Japanese are very busy, they know it's a very interesting mission. The oil tank is designed to be 6,300 tons. Asterisk this time, the ship only added to 2,000 tons of single-air fuel. On April 6, at 4:45 p.m., the Big River launched its port. Their plan was to set sail at night to avoid the US reconnaissance aircraft, but the Big River was discovered by a US submarine as soon as it set sail. The US military directly reported the news by email. The Big River, which also intercepted US telegrams, also changed its route. The Chongshang Island was originally in the south. The Big River sailed along the outer sea of Jeju Island, passing the Zaduo Strait, and sailed westward. They tried to confuse the US military with this method. However, this method did not work. It was 7 days in the morning. The observation sign on the Great River suddenly discovered 2 people on the left side and 2 on the right side. We noticed that the telescope of the commander of the Great River in the picture was hanging in white cloth. In fact, the main function of this cloth is to protect the telescope from being scratched by metal screws, and to clean the lens and prevent heat from coming out after the US reconnaissance aircraft was found. The big nuclear number immediately entered the combat preparation. They are ready to launch the 30th. 30th is like a 1.3-ton big firecracker. There are more than 1,000 small burners in it, but the actual combat effect of this kind of bomb was not good. The gun did not hit the reconnaissance aircraft. The commanding officer realized that the situation was not good, so he ordered to rush to Chongshang Island. The large nuclear weapon was found to advance at full speed. 12 cauldrons and 4 steam engines were fully open. They planned to rush to Chongshang Island as soon as possible at level 27. At the same time, 156 high-speed guns are all around the area. All observers are closely watching the sky around. At 12:40 p.m., the first 40 US fighter jets arrived. All soldiers quickly entered the field. gun pointed at the incoming fighter. The 3rd Division of the Chinese Army is starting to attack. The 3 main guns fired first, then the rest of the firecrackers fired together. The US military fighter shot at the sound of a laugh. The US pilot did not fear the intense fire. The anti-gun fired a grenade. The grenade launcher also fired a grenade from a good angle. In fact, there is a problem with the counterintuitive. It seems that the firepower of the big river is very fierce, but it is very difficult to hit the fighter. Although the big river is equipped with many anti-aircraft guns, its fire control system is slow to respond to low-altitude, fast targets. American pilots find that, as long as they are excited, the Japanese bombs cannot catch up with themselves, especially when the plane is floating in the sun. The gunner can only fire with his senses. In fact, the whole battle was the only one in Japan that shot down 3 American fighters. The strongest weapon of the Great River is actually its armor. The whole ship used 230,000 tons of armor steel to defend itself. The main turret front armor thickness reached an amazing 650 mm, and the main armor belt near the side of the waterline was also 410 mm. This almost perfect armor makes the large number of lives very strong, but the huge weight causes the ship to be in the water. The speed of the US military strategic ship was 35 knots, and the large number of knots was only 27 knots. This led to him not being able to escape when he was in the air at 12:45 and 1:35, and the US military rushed to more than 250 fighters, to more than 250 fighter jets. They launched up in the constant airspace of the US military. The Grenadiers hit many targets. Seeing the continuous air defense fire, the US military fighter adjusted the attack angle and shot down the air defense gun on the Grenadier deck. This giant ship, like a small island, is suffering the crazy hissing of the US military fighter. The ship owners destroyed the fire and continued to organize the counterattack. But this is no longer the era of big guns and giant ships. Whoever has the control of the airspace, who can rule the ocean? No matter how crazy the Japanese are in defense, after all, they can't stop the fighter planes that come and go. There were 24 bombs hit the deck of the big river because of an aircraft bomb of 450 kilograms. The water barrier was blown up, and the water treatment was not possible. The captain ordered the right-hand cabin to align with the water to restore the balance of the ship. The Japanese in the cabin immediately executed the water control order. The Japanese army in the cabin immediately executed the order. The ship of the Great River was also beginning to float, but the speed of the flight was down to 18 knots. The deck is like hell, and the Japanese are everywhere, although the deck on the upper deck has been hit continuously. These are not fatal injuries. The most fatal damage comes from the US military's torpedoes. 10 torpedoes hit the ship. 9 of them hit the left side of the ship. The ship's body temperature is 18 degrees because the right side of the ship is full of water. To maintain the balance of the ship, we can only go to the mechanical room, restroom, and the boiler room to stay in the water. The time is 14.15. The speed of the ship is getting slower. The combat power has been lost. Captain, the underwater control ship is here to report the situation. I understand. I will go to the main deck of the main camp. At this time, the commander of the Great River issued an order to withdraw the sword. However, everything was too late. As the sword continued to be slashed, the main turret of 8,000 tons became a mine. Its weight accelerated the invasion of the Great River. As the angle of the Great River is getting bigger and bigger, more than 30 meters of the bridge slowly sank into the water. This steel giant beast is no longer able to return to the sky. Soon after, the whole warship was wrapped around the sea. The 16.5 orange flowers that symbolized the Japanese royal family also sank into the water. At 14.23 in the afternoon, the main cannon ammunition depot exploded and sank. The 260-meter Great River is divided into 2 sections. The explosion caused the fire, and the smoke to mix formed. A was split into 2 sections. The explosion caused a mixture of fire and smoke, forming a huge mushroom cloud, and even reaching a height of 6,000 meters. The Lure Island, 200 kilometers away, can be seen, including the Japanese Army commander and the captain's 2,000 Japanese forces. The Japanese Navy also entered the cold Pacific. If the Great River was born in a war, it would be invincible. It is the peak of the Great War of the Great War. But during World War II, the decisive victory was not the battleships, but the aircraft carrier-based aircraft carrier. During the Pacific War, the 460mm main cannon of the Great River only fired once on enemy surface ships. It was also used in the Battle of Leyte. The rest of the time, it was used for air defense. Most of the time, it was used as a decoration. The failure of the Great River was due to the old age war of war ideology. The fundamental reason was that Japan, which has limited resources, not enough to support the huge consumption of war. Now the Great River is lying in the sea at a depth of 340 meters. The coordinates are 30 degrees north and 43 degrees east. Tokyo 1 to 8 degrees and 04 minutes. If you need a little buddy, please take it yourself.